begin this, I'm going to just zoom out over here, select the character and tab into edit mode. And what I'll do is select some of these vertices and double tap. Now I'm going to right click and press O to switch off proportional editing. You can also switch that off up here. Again, just double tap G and just maybe drag some of these vertices to form the shape of the ear. So I'm just going to roughly get these into position here. So I'll just drag some of these around. And try not to distort the mesh too much. So double tap and G will just edge slide. And you'll get less distortion on the mesh using that. So I'm going to press 3 for face select. I can select these faces here. I'll press X and choose faces. I'm going to press 1 now for vertex selection. I can alt select this here, and over in the front view what I might do is just press E to extrude and maybe drag this out a little bit, and I can scale it down and maybe just press G, just drag it down a little bit, maybe G and just drag it back in. Okay, so I'm going to press E again, drag this over, can maybe rotate it a little bit, scale it up, something like that, and I can press E again, drag that over, and over here I'll press E, right click and just scale that in a little bit. I'm going to press Z and come back to solid, and I'll press E again, right click and scale it in, and left click. So I'm just going to select these vertices here. So these 4 here, press F, select maybe these 4 here, press F, and finally I'll select these 4 here and fill that in. So if I press 3 for face select, I can select these 3 here, Control plus to increase the selections, and I'll come to approximately here, and I'll press Control I to invert the selection and press H, and that way it just hides everything except for my selected vertices. So I'm going to press Z and just bring up wireframe. I'm going to press 1 for vertex selection, just press Alt A just to make sure nothing is selected. I'll lasso select, so I'll press and hold Control and just use the right mouse button to draw selection over here. Press G, and I'm just going to drag these into roughly the shape of the outline that represents the ear here. So maybe something like this. Okay, and I'll press Alt H to bring everything back. I'll press Z and come back to solid, and I can press and hold the middle mouse button just to come around here. I'll also press 3 for face select. I'm going to select these 3 here, and just over in the front view I'll press G and X and just drag these back in a little bit. Okay, it's really just the shape that I wanted there. So if I press 1, I can maybe select this here. I'll press G, X, drag that across just to give that a little bit of volume here. And maybe Alt select that. I can scale that down a little bit. Okay, I'll press 3 again. I'll maybe pan this over here. Can maybe Alt select that there. Control plus a few times and maybe drag that back in. That's a little bit wide looking. Control minus just to deselect the last row of vertices. Press G, X and drag this across. Okay. So that's really just a bare shape in for the character's ear. You can put a lot more detail into that if you want. I might just scale that down a little bit there and drag it over in the X. Okay, so that's really just a basic shape in for the character's ear. I'm going to tab back to object mode. I'm going to come over to the nose here, and again just tab back in here. I'm going to press 3 for face select. I'll select this face here, press I to inset this, maybe just drag that in. I'll press 1 again. So with these still selected, I'll press E, just drag these up, maybe zoom out over here, I can switch back to wireframe. So just drag these up without coming out the top, so maybe somewhere like this. I can press 1 then for vertex selection. Just going to press and hold the middle mouse button. Zoom in here. I can alt select this here, right click and just choose circle. Press 1 again, I'll press Z and wireframe, and these have gone kind of at an angle, so I'll just rotate this one here, maybe something like this. lasso select these here, maybe press G and just drag these over and just straighten that up a little bit more. So I'll come back to solid and just take a look at this. So I can maybe just go ahead and just adjust some of these vertices on the nose and just work around that. So I might just maybe select these again and scale them in a little bit, something like that. So that'll be the process. Same with the ears. I'll just go around and take a look and see, can I improve the shape a little bit more. Okay, but here I'll press 1 and Alt select this entire edge loop here, and I can zoom in over here. So what I'll do first then is just extrude this. I might just zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to press E and just right click. I'm going to press G and Y over here just to drag this back slightly in the Y axis, maybe something like that. I can also maybe just scale this down, so I'll press S and just drag that in a little bit and left click. Okay, so I'll press E again and press Y just to restrict it to the Y axis and left click. I can scale this up, maybe press S and Z for the moment, just drag that up a little bit, press S and Y just to flatten this out a little bit on the back just before we begin to move backwards. Press and hold the middle mouse button just to come around. So I'll press S and X maybe and scale that out a little bit further, but I don't want to come out too far. I really just want to have this as the internal wall of the mouth as we're extruding back, and that just means just not going out too far on the edges, maybe a little bit more on the top. So that's looking pretty good at the moment. I might just scale it out a little bit more and I can left click. So over here I'll press E and extrude this back. I can press Y actually just to restrict it to the Y axis, something like that. And then over here I can just take a look and see, is it large enough? Now what I might do is Alt select that and maybe scale it up a little bit more, something like that. Like I said, I don't want to go too far. That looks pretty good. I can Alt select this one here, then maybe scale that up also just to match the height. Left click, pan this over. I can extrude again, maybe press Y and just restrict it to the Y. I can press E again, drag this back. I can press R to rotate it. So what we're going to do is just come down here and have it as the character's throat. So I can drag this down a little bit, press E. I can rotate a little bit more, press S and scale that in, maybe press G. We don't want to be able to accidentally see into the character's body, so we'll just leave it there like that. Now you can put a face on that if you want to, but I'm going to be happy. It's not going to be possible to actually see that, so I'm going to leave that right there. Okay, with this selected, I'm going to press Ctrl+ a few times and just come back up to maybe that vertex there. So if I take a look in the mouth here, we can come back up to that edge loop here. And I might just press Ctrl+ one more time just to select all of that right out to the character's lips here, and press Ctrl+I to invert that selection and press H. And that way I kind of get a better idea of what I've selected there. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is press 3 for face select. I'll select these two faces here and maybe these two here. I'll press Shift D to make a copy, right click. I'll press P for the separate menu and just choose selection. And that way it separates this object from the character's body and it's now its own object. So I'll tab back to object mode. I can select it. So it's this object here. Okay. And over here in the outliner, I'll double click and I'll just call this the tongue and press enter. And I'll tab into edit mode with it selected. And I might just press and hold the middle mouse button here. Just drag this over. I'll press A to select it all. I can press E and extrude this up in the Z axis. And okay. Not looking too bad. I'll select these front two, maybe scale it on the X a little bit. Maybe select these again, press G, Z, drag them up a little bit. Maybe press 1 for vertex selection. I can select these inner vertices, press G, Z, drag that down a little bit. So you could spend a little bit of time and shape that tongue a little bit more. The important thing is it's a separate object to the character and it's named up here in the viewport. Tab back to object mode. I can press G and Z and just drag it up a little bit. And just maybe position that approximately there for the moment. Okay, and I'll tab into edit mode, press the / key to isolate it and come around the back here. Press 3 for face selection, select these, press 3 again. I can press E and extrude that back a little bit. I'll press G and maybe just drag it down. Maybe something like that and left click. Now you can make that as large as you want. I'm going to be pretty happy with that. I'm going to press the / key to come back here and just tab back here. So that's the character's tongue. To begin this, I'm going to select the character's head and just tab into edit mode here. maybe select this vertex and this one, press Shift S and cursor to selected. I'll tab back to object mode then, press Shift A, and under mesh I'll choose a cube. Now in the cube options here, I can just left click and drag and just reduce this from 2 meters down to approximately the size we want. Doesn't have to be too accurate. That's going to do. Can minimize this. I'll press 1 for front view, and I'll press G and Z and just drag this down a little bit. So over here I can zoom in and maybe scale this into Y. So we want to form the top tooth of the character here, something like this. I can maybe press G and just drag it to one side here. So if I select the character, I know that that's the center point of the grid, so I'll press Shift S and choose cursor to selected, and then I can just maybe drag this across and just keep it slightly off center for the moment. It's not going to be too important right now. I'll press S and Z and just scale that into Z a little bit, maybe something like that. I'll also come over to the modifiers tab here and add in a subdivision surface modifier. I'll bump up the views to 2. Okay, and we can tab in then to edit mode, and actually I'll switch on this option here, which just allows us to see the vertices in edit mode without the original bounding box. So I'll press Ctrl R, left click. I'll push this up the top, so I kind of want to square up the top. Ctrl R, left click, and maybe keep this kind of slightly round. So again, think of the top teeth and how they might be shaped. So that's roughly how I'm going to shape this one. I'll tab back to object mode and just right click and shade smooth. I'll also maybe over here in the side view press G and Y and just drag this back here and just place it in with the gums. Now the gums can be positioned if they're slightly too far back or if they're too far forward. So just keep an eye on that and position them as you see fit. So mine might be slightly back, but I'm going to wait and see until the teeth are in position and if I'm going to be happy with their position. The other thing to do is to rotate these slightly. So I'm going to press R, Z and just rotate that a little bit just to line up with the curve of the gums there. And I'll also press G and Y and just drag that back slightly. Press 1. The other important thing is the size. It's always good to have a reference image. I might scale that up a little bit, maybe something like that. They can be adjusted anyway, but it's always good just to begin close to the correct size. So I'll press Shift D to make a copy, press X and just drag that across here. I can scale this one down because it's going to be a little bit smaller. I can left click, maybe scale it a little bit more, press G, X, just drag that back. And I can press and hold the middle mouse button just to come in there. I'll press R, Z and just rotate that to match that curve again. Just come around, I can press G and Y and just drag that back and get that in position. G, X, drag that over, something like that. Maybe it's a little bit too far back, so I'll rotate it a little bit and drag it forward a little bit there like that, just to match up with the front curve of the middle tooth there. So I can just spend a little bit of time and get this correct. Not too bad. I'll press Shift D to make a copy, press X. This time I'm going to tab into edit mode, press 3 for face select. I can select the bottom face on this and just scale it on the X and scale that in. This one is a little bit more sharper and I can press G and Z, just drag that down a little bit. Tab back to object mode. I can move this back then in the Y axis. And the other thing we could do over here, I can press 7 for top view and zoom in. So maybe rotate it from here and then just press G and drag it into position, and that might be a little bit easier to work. So rotate it and just drag it. Okay, and then over here I can double check, so I might just press G, Z and just drag that down a little bit. I can see that the gum might need to come back up a little bit, and that's an easy fix at any time. That's something I can work on. I might just press G and Z then. It's a little bit too far down. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'll select this tooth. Over here, I'll press Shift D and just drag this across here. And maybe just press S and scale it down a little bit. I can rotate it. Press G. And maybe I can select the character, press H to hide it. That way it just might be a little bit easier to see these. So I can select this, drag it down in the Z. Maybe the gums need to come up a little bit in here, so I can tab in, select some of these vertices here. Just rotate around and just press G and Z and just drag these up a little bit. Maybe edge slide and then just G and Z just to help so we can see that tooth there. And I can maybe select the other vertices on this, press G and Z, drag that up there. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to tab back to object mode, select this tooth then, and I can rotate over here, press G, drag it into position, and maybe rotate it a little bit more and drag that in further and into the gums where it kind of should be. This tooth here, I could rotate it and maybe press G, drag that in a little bit, maybe rotate it, press G. Do the same thing then with this one, drag that into position. And I might just maybe scale that up a little bit, it's a little bit small. Drag that back. Okay, I'll make a second copy of that, so Shift D and just drag that back. Maybe rotate it around, press G, and I can have a look and see how it is over here. So that looks pretty good. So I'll select this here, Shift D, maybe just press X, drag that across here. Tab into edit mode, I'll press A, just rotate around here. So maybe I can scale this on the Y a little bit. So maybe over here I can just rotate it back, so when I do scale it on the Y it doesn't go an odd shape. So maybe something like this. And over here then, Control R, I can add in an edge loop here, Control R, add in an edge loop here, come around underneath, maybe select this, press G, just drag it up a little bit, something like that. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'll press 1 again. I could maybe scale this down a little bit, it's a little bit big but it's not too bad. Maybe here I can rotate it a little bit and scale it in the X. Okay, with that then maybe scale it down a little bit more and press G. So I want to drag this back over here and just line it up approximately there. Let's see how that's looking. You can tab back to object mode, press G and Z. Now you can spend more time and get those teeth looking a little bit more realistic. Okay, I'll be pretty happy with that. If I press 1, maybe press G and X and just drag that out there a little bit. Okay, and over here then I can press Shift D, just drag that one back. Okay, that looks pretty good. So let's take a look then. If I select all of these, I can combine them. So I'll Shift select all of these, Control J to join them together. Press 1. What we can do is mirror these across here. So I might just press G, X, just drag this in a little bit. So it kind of lines up with the blue line here. So what we could do is maybe come over to the modifiers tab, turn on a mirror modifier for this. The other thing we need to do is probably zero out the transformation. So we have a rotation on this and that's why we're getting that odd positioning. So if you look here, it's at an odd angle. I'll press Control A and we have a rotation. We could fix the rotation first and that way you can see it fixes the teeth here. But then we also need to fix the location. You can see how it's overlapping. So Control A, we can choose location. That fixes that up. And the scale is always a good one. So Control A, let's just apply the scale also. Okay, so that's the top teeth in position. The bottom teeth are a little bit different. So over here, I'm just going to maybe switch this on. I can tab into edit mode. I'm going to press A, press G and X. Just drag them apart a little bit, something like that. I don't want them right together and I can adjust that in a moment. I'm going to tab back to object mode. I'm just going to delete off the subdivision surface modifier. And if I tab into edit mode again, I can press G, X, just drag these across a little bit. Just make sure they're not overlapping because they're kind of slightly touching there. So I'll tab back to object mode and hit the apply button on that modifier. And then if I tab into edit mode, I'll press Alt A to deselect. I'll press Z, bring up wireframe. Can box select then all the teeth on this side. Zoom in here. And first, before I drag these in, let's just add back the subdivision surface modifier because that's going to maybe change. Yeah, so that gives a little bit more of a distance or a gap between them. So I'll press G, X and just drag this in here and just drop that there. I'll press Control I to invert the selection, press G, X and I can drag these in just to match up with that there. Left click, that's going to be good. I can tab back to object mode. I'm going to come over to the add modifier and just add a mirror. And this time I'm going to make this in the Z axis and I can zoom out. So what I'll do is just move the 3D cursor down in the Y location and that way we can just mirror around it. So I'm going to press N, come up to view, come to the 3D cursor and just press and hold Control and just drag this down. It moves in quite large increments, so I'll get it as close as I can. So here looks good. I'll press N to hide that. I'll right click on our teeth and I'll choose set origin to the 3D cursor. That gives us a starting point for this, and actually what I'll do is just delete that modifier again. I'll apply the mirror modifier and I'll switch back on the subdivision surface modifier. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'll press tab, come into edit mode. I'll press Z and come back to solid, alt A. So I'll press Z, bring up wireframe. I can box select the bottom section, and I can press P and just choose separate by selection. I can tab back to object mode. So select the top teeth over here. I can double click, just call these teeth underscore top, press enter. I can select the bottom, double click, call these teeth underscore bottom, and press enter. So obviously the bottom teeth are not the same as the top, so we're going to have to make a couple of modifications. So I'm going to press Z and come back to solid. So I'll tab in here, just alt select. I can hover the mouse on these and maybe press X and just delete the vertices. Press X, delete the vertices, tab back here. Okay, a couple of modifications because some of these teeth are not going to be exactly the same. I'm going to select this top section, tab in here. So for some reason we have these teeth overlapping. If I come over and just switch up the viewport quality, I'm going to press Alt A. So I'll press Alt A just to deselect. I'm going to hover the mouse on these and press X, just choose vertices. I'll hover the mouse on this, press Shift D, and just drag this across the X, left click. And over here I'm going to zoom in and just rotate it. I'm going to just create a new center tooth because this one has just merged together, so there's no point in trying to fix that. So with that selected, I'll just scale this up a little bit and something like that. Okay, so G and X, and then I'll just press Shift D and just drag that across, press X and restrict it to the X axis. Okay, so hopefully they won't melt together again. So down here, I'm going to select the bottoms, tab in here. I can maybe up the viewports to 2 and just switch on this option here. Just press Alt A, I can hover the mouse on this one here. Press L, and actually we have some overlapping teeth here because at one stage when we had the modifier on it, it overlapped on itself. So what I can do is, so if I press 1 for vertex selection, I can right click, merge vertices and choose by distance. Okay, so that doesn't work, so I'm going to press Alt A. I'll hover the mouse on each of these one time and press the L key. Okay, and I'll do the same thing over here. And I'll press X and I'll choose verts. So now if I hover the mouse on one of these and press G, it should be only one object. So I'll tab back to object mode. I'm going to do the same thing up here. Just press Alt A. So I'll hover the mouse. I know that this one is not doubled. I'll hover the mouse on the rest of these one time and select them. So all of these. I know the center ones are fine. So all of these right the way around here. And I'll press X and just choose vertices. Okay, so that was just because of the modifier. I didn't use it correctly. I'm going to press 1 for front view and I can zoom back in over here. So I'll tab back to object mode, select these and come in here. So Shift D, make a copy. I'll press X, drag that over here. I can zoom in here. I'll rotate this, something like this. And I can maybe press and hold the middle mouse button. I'm going to drag this out on the Y. And maybe press 3 for face selection, press 1, I'll press G, drag that face up a little bit, scale it on the X a little bit, and press G, X, drag, maybe drag that over here actually because I'm going to have to change the positions of some of these. So with this selected, Shift D, I can drag that across in the X, and I can make a little modification to it just to differ it a little bit. I can maybe press G, Z, drag it down a little bit, maybe rotate it. Maybe rotate it that way and just drag it a little bit. Okay, so Alt A, I'll hover the mouse on this one. And over here then in the viewport, I can press G and just drag that across. Just to match up, I can press and hold the middle mouse button just to make sure I'm getting these in the correct position. I can move on again, Alt A, I can hover the mouse on this, press L, and press G and just drag that over there. Okay, so I can repeat the process for all of these. Hover the mouse on them and just move them into position. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'll do the same thing over here. So actually what I might do is tab back to object mode, select these, come over to the outliner, press the period key and just hide those so I don't actually get confused. I can select these then, tab in to edit mode, hover the mouse on this, press L. And actually what I might do is just hover the mouse on the rest of these and just press L, press G and drag these back as one unit. Okay, so that's the teeth in position. I'll tab back to object mode. I'll switch back on the teeth here. And I'm going to spend a little bit more time and just position these a little bit better So maybe I could press G, Z, drag these down a little bit, sit them in the gums. Now if I need to, I can pull the gums down a little bit more, or I can increase the height of the gums, whatever is going to look correct with the character. I'm going to switch him back on now, maybe zoom back out. Okay, so not looking too bad. I might actually increase the width of the teeth, so I'll go back in there. I press 1. Top ones look pretty good. I might widen them out a little bit each side, and these ones here I might just drag them out a little bit into the gums a little bit further because they're actually in the tongue at the moment. Okay, that's an easy fix. I'll do that between the next video. But size wise, I'd be pretty happy with how they're looking. I could change up the shape a little bit, but definitely widen them out on the x-axis there a little bit. Okay. Character selected, I'll just tab into edit mode. Now over here, I can press 7, come into a top view. I'm going to press 3 for face select. I'll press Alt A just to deselect, and I'll press C for the circle select. And what I'll do is just circle select these faces on top here. All of these around here. I can middle mouse to deselect any faces I don't want to select. I can right click over here. I'm just going to maybe zoom in. I'll press C again and circle select these here. I can right click just to exit circle select, and I can just rotate around here and press C again and select maybe these faces here. And I'm going to select these two here and maybe come down to maybe this spot here. So I'm going to right click again to exit paint select, so I can just rotate around and select the remaining faces here on this. Okay, and with these selected, I'm going to press Shift D to make a copy. I can right click and press P, and that brings up the separate menu. I'll choose selection. I can tab back to object mode and then select this hair object. I'll come over to the outliner, double click and just rename this to hair, press enter. Now I'm going to select the character for one moment, come over to the outliner, double click and just call this character. Press enter, and that way we just know what it is in the outliner. So I'll select the hair. I'll come over to the modifiers tab and just apply the mirror modifier. And I'll also click add modifier and just add in a solidify modifier. So this solidify modifier is going to give us a little bit of thickness to the hair. So what I'll do is just move it up in the stack here first. I'll press N over here and just come up to the item and just take a look. So we have a rotation that we can zero out. So I'll press Ctrl A and just choose rotation, and I'll press N again just to hide that. Over here on the solidify modifier, you can drag this out a little bit further and the name comes into view. So it's the top one in the stack here. I'm going to click and drag and just increase the thickness of this hair a little bit, maybe something like this. I can press 1 over here just to come into a front view, maybe press 3 over here, and we can take a look at this. So I'll just left click and drag. Now this is coming into the negative direction, so I'm just going to increase this in size a little bit. So maybe something like this. I'm going to come up to the outliner and just minimize the character collection. I'm going to switch on the selectability of the front view image here, and I can zoom out a little bit. I'm going to select it, press Shift D X and just drag that across here, and that way I can just see the type of hair this character has. I'll come back over then to the outliner and I'm just going to make this unselectable. I'm also going to hide it in the viewport, and I'll also hide the other images for the moment. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit now. Select the hair and come over to the modifiers tab and just apply that solidify modifier once I'm happy with the thickness. Okay, and I'm going to leave the subdiv on that. I'll tab into edit mode then, and what I want to do is make a couple of modifications. So I actually switch back on that image that I copied and just zoom out so I can see the shape of that hair. Over here I'll press 7 for top view and just bring this character into view. I can select a couple of these faces on the front here. What I want to do is kind of shape this to match this image here. So maybe this number here, I can maybe press G and just drag this down a little bit. Maybe press Z and just restrict it to the Z axis. I can left click. I'm going to rotate these then slightly. Maybe something like this. And I could possibly maybe select these faces here. Might just drag these back up in the Z a little bit. Something like that. Okay, so over here, I'm just going to come around and have a look at this. I can press 1 for vertex selection. I might just select the inner vertices here and press G, Z, drag them back down a little bit. I don't want to go too far above the head. I'll do the same thing here. So G and Z. select these and just drag them down. And maybe select a couple of these ones here and drag them in the X a little bit, something like that. I'll press 3 again for face, and I can select some of these faces then again and just modify them a little bit in position. Just rotate around here. I can select these side faces here. What I want to do is just flatten in this section a small bit on the side, so I can maybe select all of these here. And I'll do the same thing on the far side. Just select these faces here. Okay, and I'll press 1 then for front view, press S and X and just scale these in a little bit, just so the hair is not as large each side there. So maybe something like that. I can press 1 for vertex selection. Now I can come along and just modify and position some of these vertices a little bit, just to give a little bit of variation in parts. So I'll select these two here, maybe press G and Z, drag this down a little bit. And maybe G and X, and just drag that in. And I can work around and do the same things. Press G, X, drag in some of these a little bit. Okay, I can come around to the back of the character, maybe press 3 for face select, maybe select every second face here. And I can press G and Z and just drag this down a little bit. I can maybe deselect some of them. And again, just work around and modify the hair and just make sure I don't come away too far from the character's head. So I can select these and just drag them in. What I'm looking to do is just maintain the hair close to the head of the character. So I'll select these here and maybe press G and Y, just drag them forward. Just have them tight in against the head. Okay, so that would be the process there. The other thing I can do, if I press 2 for edge selection, I can alt select maybe this edge here, press and hold shift and alt select some of these, every second one maybe. I can press S just to scale that in a little bit, just to give a little bit of bumpiness to the hair. I'll press numpad 1 for front view and I'll press 1 for vertex selection. I can zoom out a little bit and I might select some of these verts here, maybe these two here, maybe press G and Z and just drag these up a little bit. And I can maybe zoom in, just modify these a little bit, give the character's hair a little bit of volume on the front. Okay, something like that. That'll be the process. Head back to object mode, take a look at this. Be pretty happy with how that's looking right now. I'm going to go ahead and make a couple more modifications. I'm going to make sure that it's not too far away from the character's head, and I'll also just maybe modify some of the vertices and have it looking a little bit more like this. Okay. And I'll zoom in over here, and over here I can press numpad 3 to come into a side view and just pan this up. I'm going to press and hold shift and right click just to place the 3D cursor here. Shift A, I'm going to add in a cube and come down here to the add cube and just click in the size and just reduce this down a little bit. Maybe something like that. It's going to be good. I'm going to minimize this. I'm also going to come over to the modifiers tab here and just add a subdivision surface modifier. And I can bump up the views to 2. And up here in the outliner, I'm going to double click and just call this eyebrow _R and press enter. And over in this view, if I zoom in a little bit, what I can actually do is press Control numpad 3 to switch into the left orthographic. And that way I can just see this a little bit better. The bridge of the nose is not in the way there. So I'll tab into edit mode, maybe scale this down a little bit more. Something like that. And over here, I'm going to switch on this option. And that way we don't see the cage in edit mode. So I'm going to zoom in. And I'll press 3 for face select. I can select maybe this face here. Press E to extrude. I can maybe press G, rotate this a little bit. Press E again and press G. Maybe drag that over. I can just zoom in here. Maybe drag this forward into Y a little bit, just so it comes out of the head. Select this face, press G and Y and just drag this out. I can also switch back to vertex selection with the 1 key. select these here, and over here just press G and Y and just drag them out a little bit. Just repeat the process for this. It's back in a slight bit. Okay, I'll press 3 again, select maybe this face here, press E, and I can press G, rotate, and I'll press A to select it all, maybe press G and Z and just drag it up a little bit and zoom out just to see how that's looking. Okay, so that's not looking too bad. I'm going to press 1. What I might do is just all select some of these, double tap G to edge slide them. I think this one in particular, maybe just edge slide it back a little bit. It's a little bit too long there. And I'll just select a couple of these and move them into position. Okay, so that's the basic shape of the eyebrow. I can just tab back to object mode. I'm just going to rotate around here just to see how that is. And it's a little bit at an angle, so I'll come into top view and maybe just rotate this. Something like that. So at least it's following the curvature of the character's head there. That wouldn't be too bad. You can make adjustments to that if you want. You could add a little bit more detail, but I'm going to be pretty happy. I'm going to right click on this, shade it smooth. I'll come over to the modifiers tab, click add modifier, and come down and add a mirror modifier. I'll also move this up in the stack with this little button here, and back over here I'll press Ctrl A and just apply all transformations, and that way that will just get mirrored to the other side. I'll press 1 then for front view. Okay, and you can make any modifications to that as you see fit. Okay, but the eyebrows selected, the first thing I can do is come over to the material tab here and just click new. And I'll click in here and just rename this to M_eyebrows and press enter. And I can come down to the base color and maybe just give this a dark brown. So I can drag down here a little bit and click and drag this and darken this. Maybe just change this a little bit more. Something like this. You can always update it after. And I'm going to press Z and choose Look Dev. And that way we can see the material as we're adding it. It's a little bit dark, so I'm going to just maybe drag that back up a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm going to select the hair and I can click the drop down here. I'll first choose the eyebrows and then I'll just click the new material and I can just rename this to M_hair. Press enter. So that allows me then just, if I want to, I can change this a little bit, maybe darken it down a little bit, something like that. Okay, next I can select the character and click new. Click in here, call this M_character skin. Okay, press enter. And for this, let's come up to the shading menu. And I can press the / key a couple of times just to bring the character into view. And I can zoom in here. Okay, in the base color, I can click in here and just maybe tone this down a little bit. Something like that. And we have the option for subsurface scattering. Okay, I can just left click and drag and just increase this a little bit. This can be updated eventually. I'm just going to leave it set to 0.06 for the moment. And I'm going to come back to layout and zoom out. The next thing I want to do is tab into edit mode and add a couple of material slots to the character's body and just add in different colors. So I'm going to tab in here. I'll press 3 for face select. I'm going to press Alt A just to make sure everything is deselected. I might press Z and bring up wireframe. And I can lasso select maybe the top section that I'm going to add as his shirt. So maybe all of these here. I can press C also and maybe circle select a couple of these faces here. Right click. I'm going to press Z and come back to Look Dev. And I can select these faces here. Press and hold the middle mouse button, come around to the back and just continue selecting these here. Okay, so with all of these faces selected, I'll come over to the material tab here and click the plus here to add a new material slot and click new. I'll click in here and I'll call this M_character shirt. Press enter. I can hit the assign button and that assigns those faces to this material. So down here then I can click the base color, maybe give this a blue color, something like this. Okay, can press Alt A just to deselect. I can pan this down, Alt select and Shift select all of these right the way down to here. You can also select these faces here and at the back. Come over to the material tab, click the plus, click new, rename this to maybe M_character pants. Press enter. hit the assign button to assign that material to the selected faces. And down here in base color, then I can give this a kind of a brown color, maybe something like this. Okay, Alt A to deselect, and come down further, then zoom in. So I can alt select these here, maybe Control plus to increase that selection. I'll come around underneath, press C for the circle select, and I can just paint select these faces on the bottom and right click, come over to the material, click the plus, click new, click in here, rename this to M_character shoe soles. I can press enter and hit assign. I'm going to leave those white, and I can press and hold the middle mouse button just to come up here. I can alt select this, maybe shift and alt select this here, and finally just select these 4 faces here. So that's all this top section. I can come over, click the plus, click new, click in here, and just rename this to maybe M_character shoes, and press enter, hit the assign button to assign that material, click the base color, and just give these whatever color I kind of want to. So maybe I go for a dark brown, maybe go for a kind of a black color. Okay, I can press Alt A. Okay, the skin color is a little bit too white, so I can zoom in here, just update that a little bit. You can get reference to these online. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to come over to the fingernails here. I can select the top 4 faces on all of these. And come over here, click the plus, click new, name it, so M_character nails. Press enter, hit the assign button, and I can click in here and maybe just darken this down. Something like this. Okay, Alt A just to deselect, and I can zoom out. Okay, so it's just a basic material on the character. I'm going to tab back to object mode, just press 1. So I'll zoom in again, and we have a couple more objects here. So we have the character's teeth. So I'll select the top teeth, come over to the material tab, click new, click in here, just rename this to M_character teeth. Press enter, and maybe come up to the shading. I can press the / key a couple of times. I can zoom in here. Okay, we have that clipping issue again. That's going to be fine. I'm going to come over to this here and just turn down the roughness a little bit. Just make them kind of shiny. And that's probably going to be more visible back here in layout. So I can maybe zoom in. So you can see that there's a nice sheen on those. Okay, you can mess with that. I'm going to select these teeth, shift click these ones here. Press Control L for the make links menu, and we can just make links to that material. So you want to select the object that has the material last, and that way this works out very well. So I'm going to click that. So now you can see that this material is applied to the bottom teeth also. So I'm going to select the character's tongue here. This object here, you can also select it up in the outliner. I'm going to click new and just call this M_character tongue. Press enter, and I can just change that color a little bit, something like this. Okay, and then we have maybe the inside of the mouth. So if I select the character, I can tab into edit mode. Maybe the easiest thing to do is maybe alt select these here and all of these. Maybe alt select right the way around here and press H just to hide that off. And then in here we can come in, maybe Alt A, and hover the mouse on this, press L, and that way all of these are selected. We can come over and we can add a new material slot here, click new. I can rename it to M_character mouth and press enter, and I can hit the assign button, and down here then I can just change the color of this a little bit different than what we have outside. Okay, I'm just going to correct that spelling here. I have a capital. Not a big deal. Okay, so I'm going to press Alt H to bring everything back, and we can tab back to object mode. Maybe add a separate material for that. So if I select it, I can tab in here, maybe Alt select these here, and maybe just hit the plus, click new. Just rename this M_character lips. Press enter, hit the assign button, and I can just change this color a little bit to its own. Okay, and tab back to object mode, and then I can just adjust that. Give it a little bit of a darker shading, but not too much. Okay, so I'll press numpad 1 and just zoom out here. So that's all parts of the character with some material on them. Okay, but for the moment I'm going to leave it there for this one.